Translators to the reader.
Part 1.
The best things have been slandered. Any effort to promote the common good, whether by creating something ourselves or by adapting the work of others, surely deserves serious respect and consideration, yet it finds only a cold reception in the world. It is greeted with suspicion instead of interest, and with disparagement instead of gratitude. And if there is any room left for quibbling, and quibblers will invent a pretext if they do not find one, it is sure to be misinterpreted and risk being condemned. Anyone who has any experience or familiarity with history will readily admit this. For was anything ever undertaken with a touch of newness or improvement about it that didn't run into storms of argument or opposition? Anyone would think that orderly government, sound laws, education, councils, and church support, not to mention other such things, should be as safe as a sanctuary and beyond the range, as they say, of anyone's carping or any dog's yapping. By orderly government we are distinguished from animals which follow their appetites. By sound laws we are controlled and restrained from disgusting behavior and from injuring others, whether by fraud or by violence. By education we are enabled to enlighten and help others by the insight and understanding that we ourselves have gained. Further, by councils we come together in direct negotiations to settle our differences more quickly than by writings, which can be interminable. Finally, giving adequate support to the church is reasonable and appropriate, just as mothers are considered less cruel who kill their children as soon as they are born than the nursing fathers and mothers, wherever they are, who keep from the babies at their breasts the support that they need, and who also depend on them for the spiritual and pure milk of the word. So it is obvious that the things we are speaking of are basic necessities, and that therefore no one can dispute them without being absurd, or object to them without note of wickedness. Yet despite this, scholars know that honorable men have been condemned to death for attempting to bring good order and discipline to their countrymen, and that in some states it was made a capital crime even to propose a new law abrogating an old law, even though the old law was pernicious. And that some leaders, who were regarded as pillars of the state and models of virtue and prudence, have been very reluctant to accept common standards of good letters and refined speech, shying away from them as from rocks or from poison. And fourthly, it was not a rash youth but a reputable scholar who stated, perhaps in passion but yet clearly, in writing which remains to posterity, that he had never seen anything good come from a council or meeting of the clergy, but rather the opposite. And finally, with regard to church support and the subsidies that are provided for the ambassadors and messengers of the great King of Kings, there is the story, or rather the fable, as our source called it, that when the professors and teachers of Christianity in the Church of Rome, when it was a true church, were generously endowed, a voice was heard from heaven, saying, "Now poison has been poured into the church." Thus not only whenever we say something, but also whenever we do anything of note or consequence, we lay ourselves open to everyone's criticism, and they are fortunate who are least subjected to idle gossip, because it is impossible to escape it altogether. Anyone is deceived who imagines that this is true only of unimportant people, and that princes are privileged by their position. You never know who will be killed in a war, as it says in Samuel, 2 Samuel 11.25. A great commander once charged his soldiers entering a battle to aim only at the faces of the enemy, and the king of Syria commanded his captains to attack no one but the king of Israel, 1 Kings 22.31. And it is true that envy strikes most cruelly at the fairest and best. David was a worthy prince, outstanding among his peers for his early deeds, and yet for the worthiest act of his life, bringing back the ark of God in solemn triumph, he was despised and scoffed at by his own wife, 2 Samuel 6.16. Solomon was greater than David, not in virtue but in power. By his power and wisdom he built a temple to the Lord that was the glory of the land of Israel and the wonder of the whole world. But was this magnificent achievement appreciated by everyone? Hardly. Otherwise, why do they blame the son and appeal to him to ease the burden, saying, "Lighten the hard service of your father, and his heavy yoke that he placed on us." 1 Kings 12.4. Evidently, he oppressed them with conscripted labor and burdened them with taxes, and they reacted disastrously, wishing in their heart that the temple had never been built. It is so difficult to please everyone. Even when we please God best, and try to commend ourselves to everyone's conscience. The highest personages have been slandered. Coming down to later times, we will find many similar examples of this kind, or rather unkind, treatment. Julius Caesar, the first Roman emperor, never did anything more convenient for scholarship, or more useful for later generations for recording events accurately than when he reorganized the calendar by basing it on the solar year. Yet for this he was accused of innovation and arrogance, and severely censured. Then Constantine, the first Christian emperor, at least the first to openly profess the faith himself and sanction it for others, by strengthening the empire at great expense and providing for the church as he did, earned the name Pupillus, implying that he was a wasteful prince, in need of a guardian or overseer. So Theodosius, the best-named emperor, literally God's gift, was considered to be a weakling because he did not go to war until he was forced into it, although in fact he excelled in feats of chivalry and demonstrated as much when he was provoked, and he was condemned for giving himself over to luxury and pleasure because he loved peace, to the benefit of both himself and his subjects. And Justinian, the most scholarly of the emperors, at least the greatest statesman, who eliminated duplications in the legal code, systematizing the laws with some order and method, was smeared by some as an epitomist, that is, as one who destroyed valuable volumes simply to promote demand for his abridgments of them. This is how excellent princes have been treated historically, and their good deeds maligned. Nor is there any likelihood that envy and spite are dead and buried with the past. Rather, the reproof of Moses applies to every age, and now you have taken your ancestors' place, a new generation of sinful people. Numbers 32.14. The wise man says, "What has been done before will be done again." There is nothing new in the whole world, Ecclesiastes 1.9, and St. Stephen echoes, "You are just like your ancestors." Acts 7 verse 51. His Majesty's insistence, despite slander, for a survey of English translations. End of Part 1.